Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. If there is one thing that we have learned about this USC program over the last couple of months, it's that you don't count Chad Bowden. You don't count this USC program out on the recruiting trail. And I think a lot of USC fans viewed that Luke Waffle commitment as the cherry on top to a legendary class in 2026. I kind of viewed it that way as well. Now you fast forward to Monday morning and say, hey, USC might not be done in the summer on the recruiting trail. And there's two names that we got to talk about a little bit more closely than we've had the last couple of weeks. That's wide receiver Boobie Feaster. That's wide receiver Jalen Lott. It sounds like USC has a very, very good chance of landing at least one of these guys. And you're talking about two guys who are two top 100 kids in the country, two of the more coveted wide receivers from the state of Texas. We haven't talked a ton about these two guys because I kind of looked at it and said, hey, it never really felt like USC was the leader in the clubhouse for those two guys in the state of Texas. Now you're sitting here Monday morning and saying, hey, USC is arguably the leader in the clubhouse for both of them. Now, does that mean USC is going to go out and land both of these wide receivers? No, probably not. But does that mean USC's got a really good chance of at least landing one of them? Yeah, probably. And why is that such a big storyline? I think for a couple of different reasons. Most notably, we know Lincoln Riley likes to have a deep wide receiver room, and he likes to rotate a lot of wide receivers throughout a football game. So you can never have enough dynamic pass catchers in this USC offense. Number two is probably, I think, both provide a skill set that maybe USC doesn't totally have in the 2026 cycle, and that's yards after the catch ability. There are a lot of wide receivers that I like that USC has committed, but I think a lot of them, guys like Roderick and guys like Luke Weaver, are bigger bodies that work vertically down the field. All right, who's your pass catcher that is an electric factory with the football in their hands? I think that could be Boobie Feaster or Jalen Lott for USC in 2026. And you start looking at the boxes checked and say, hey, when Lincoln Riley's your head coach with some really talented quarterbacks, Hassan Longstreet as a freshman, Jonas Williams coming in 2026, potentially Peyton Houston in 2027, I look at it and say, hey, the quarterback play is going to be damn good for USC over the next couple of years. I'll look at the offensive line class USC has built and say, the offensive line is going to be really good, not only in pass protection, but running the football too, because you have two of the best running backs coming in the 2026 cycle as well. You want to continue to make sure that because you have elite quarterback play, you want those quarterbacks surrounded with everything they need to go out and dominate in the college football landscape. Well, adding one of Boobie Feaster and Jalen Lott would go a very, very long way in doing that. Now, who would I rather see USC go out and get? We're going to get into that conversation, kind of break down both Boobie Feaster and Jalen Lott and talk about, hey, where does USC sit in these recruiting battles? Really excited to get into it. Before we do, and as always, the USC fans, number one, the thing that I've learned the most over the last couple of months, the USC fan base follows the recruiting trail just about as closely as anybody in the country, any fan base in the country. And it's not only just following it, y'all got takes. Who would you rather see in this USC class in 2026 between Boobie Feaster and Jalen Lott? I'll say, hey, I kind of like the chances of one of them coming to USC. They probably don't get both, but they probably going to get one. Who would you rather like that to be? Let it fly in the comments section to the USC fans. I personally can't thank you guys enough. We're doing a ton of USC episodes. I'm personally having a blast doing them. The amount of support y'all have shown throughout the summer has been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. And let's start with, personally, my favorite one, and that's Jalen Lott. And I want to start this conversation off with, look, both of these guys are top 100 kids. It kind of, for me, it kind of comes down to, hey, what do you kind of prefer in your wide receivers? And for me, it's yards after the catch ability. When you have wide receivers that you can just get the football to in different ways and let them do the rest as runners with the football, so much value. And I look at Jalen Lott and say one of the more dynamic athletes in the country when he has the football in his hands. And I think what makes Jalen Lott really unique and something that we need to talk more about on this channel is the jumping metrics in the track and field department. I think we get really wrapped up with these 100-meter dash times. And look, long speed plays. If you're really fast in a straight line, that's going to play at any level of football possible. But what I think kind of flies under the radar is the jumping metrics. And Jalen Lott is one of the best in the country, and that plays out on the football field. Now, what do I mean by that? It's the explosive movements. It's being able to make really dynamic cuts. It's being able to create separation. It's being able to accelerate, decelerate. So you are creating that separation. It's not as flashy to just talk about as opposed to talking about a 10-5 and 100-meter dash. Elite jumping metrics correlate very, very well to wide receivers getting picked in the NFL draft. And Jalen Lott is one of the best jumpers in the country. And you see that play out on the football field. This kid knows what to do with the football in his hands. He's extremely dynamic in space. And I'll say this, I think it has the ability to manifest as a route runner too. I don't think it's quite there yet. I think there's a lot of development that can take place with Jalen Lott and his route running ability. But I will say this, from what I see with him after the catch, I think this kid can be an elite route runner as well. To me, it's the conversation we have with Mekhi Lemon, who was also a guy that he wasn't the biggest, wasn't the fastest, but the movement skills were insane. And so when Mekhi Lemon gets to USC, it's, hey, I'm creating separation. I'm really dynamic after the catch. I might not be as fast as Zachariah Branch, but man, I can create separation better than him. Ipso facto, I'm a more productive pass catcher. Jalen Lott kind of reminds me of that. And I'll say this, he ain't slow. 11-1 in the 100-meter dash, that's not something to write home about, but it's certainly not something to turn your head over either. This kid can cook as well. But the dynamic movements, his ability after the catch, I think it's a skill set that maybe USC is missing in the 2026 cycle. This one started off as a Texas-Oregon battle, and Texas was kind of the presumed favorite. That is quickly turning into a USC-Oregon battle, and it sounds like Texas currently might be out of this race. And so you look at USC-Oregon battle and say, let's just be straight up about it. USC's been taking it to Oregon on the recruiting trail. And so if you're a USC fan, you're saying, hey, Jalen Lott, that's a very intriguing recruiting battle that, look, 4 weeks ago, I really didn't think USC had much of a chance. I'm sitting here now and saying, hey, USC might be the leader in the clubhouse here. Number 2, Boobie Feaster, reclass guy, 2027 to 2026. Again, really, really all around good football player. And that's probably where I'd start. You look at the ways that Ethan Feaster can win. Number 1, very, very good contested catch ability. He's not the biggest wide receiver in terms of size, but he's a physical wide receiver, and he's got really good coordination. He's got really good body control. He's one of those guys. He's like a mini Jacoby Lane, where it's like when that football's in the air, the coordination, the body control is kind of next level. He has that ability to make those circus catches that Jacoby Lane kind of routinely makes for USC. I think he's a very, very good yards after the catch guy. I think Jalen Lott's better, but I think Boobie Feaster has some real juice when he has the football in space. A little bit different. He's a sudden mover like Jalen Lott, a little bit more of a physical wide receiver when he has the football in space. Guy that you could very similar to Jalen Lott. And I will say this, Jalen Lott, Boobie Feaster, kind of similar pass catchers too. Guys that you can move around. You can stick them on the boundary, put them in the slot, do a lot of different things, can work vertically, can work underneath, can be yards after the catch guy. Both of these wide receivers to me check a lot of boxes. This one, I think it was originally thought to be, LSU Texas A&M battle. Now it seems like it's a Texas A&M USC battle. And funny enough, he could be like the guy that, Texas A&M's pushing for a top 3 class, arguably the number 1 class in the country. Texas A&M been doing a great job on the recruiting trail. This could be the guy that USC goes out and lands, and that kind of cements the number 1 class in the country if USC doesn't already have that. Those are really the 2 names to monitor right now as we head into the month of July. Jalen Lott deciding on July 8th. Boobie Feaster does not have a commitment date, but I wouldn't be surprised if he commits sometimes during the summer too. That would get USC up to 31 commitments. We think that USC is going to land around 35 or look to bring in around 35. I think the other four would be something we've talked about. Those would be senior year evals, and kind of give yourself just look. You want to fill your class up by the fall, but you want to leave yourself a little bit of flexibility for two different reasons. Number one, there's always going to be a few guys that ball out during their senior year. Guys that aren't really recruited super hard after their junior year, flying under the radar, and then burst onto the scene as seniors. And you want to give yourself some flexibility to find those kind of guys in November and December and close on them. But you also want to give yourself some flexibility for the chaos that we're going to see in the month of November in the college football landscape. Coordinators are going to be moving. Coaching staffs are going to be moving. Commitments are going to be flipping is probably the other thing to say. You want to make sure you have some opportunity to capitalize on a little bit of that chaos. And if there's one thing that fires me up about USC is that USC was a program that 6 months ago I thought, look, November could lead to a lot of chaos for USC. I think a lot of USC fans had Lincoln Riley on the hot seat. But one thing that kind of fires me up about this program is Chad Bowden has come in and I feel like has provided a lot of stability to the program. And so there are a lot of other really big programs across the country that don't have a ton of stability. I look at Auburn and say, hey, if Hugh Freeze doesn't, I'm just rattling them off from the top of my head right now. Hugh Freeze doesn't win in year 3. You could see Auburn trying to find a new head coach. You look at Florida with Billy Napier. I think Florida's going to be really good, but if they're not, I could see Florida trying to find a new head coach. You got a lot of coordinators across the country that very well might be looking for head coaching jobs. I look at USC and say, there's some really good coaches on the staff that certainly could be in the running. Dan Lynn, if somebody wanted to go hire Dan Lynn as a head coach, I wouldn't be all that surprised. I think he's one of the best in the game. But generally, my take is I feel like USC's got a lot of stability. I feel like there's not going to be a ton of movement around the USC program at the end of the 2025 college football season, which puts USC in a very good spot, not only to cement this 2026 class, but go build on it as well. So we'll see where USC decides to go. I think Jalen, Lott, Boobie Feaster, two guys that a couple months ago I don't think we were talking all that much about. All of a sudden, we got to be talking a lot more about them. We'll see how it plays out. Wanted to hop on. I'm a Jalen Lott guy just because of the juice I think this kid has from a movement skill standpoint. We'll see what Lincoln Riley and Chad Bowden are. And hey, trust them a lot more than me. I'm just a guy sitting in my basement, Chad Bowden, building the championship caliber roster. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.